All right, welcome to the third day of our retreat. So we're going to have a very intense day today with radical inquiry. And today, on this satsang, in this talk, I would like to talk to you about anger. It's a very, very, very important topic of conversation. Anger is one of the most difficult experiences on the spiritual path. The reason it is so difficult is because in both anger and fear, there is an immediacy. So there is a very strong impulse to do something. You know, we can say the whole spiritual path is about witnessing your mind and your body, getting closer to your mind and your body without doing anything about it. And then in meditation or in other modes of practice, the past conditioning begins to unravel because you carry it with you only for as long as it perpetuates itself. So a simple practice of rest, of doing nothing, eliminates it. It is much more difficult not to do something about fear or anger than about sadness or grief or even jealousy or humiliation or something like this, because there's an immediacy. See, fear and anger, they both have a very vital role in us as living beings, as organisms. Both are actually a threat response. So someone attacks you, you feel fear. It's dangerous. Fear is a signal of danger. Or someone attacks you, you retaliate. So you need to fight. You need to fight for your life. You need to fight for your body. That's anger. So all living beings with behavior experience fear and anger. They're normal. But what happens as we begin to dream as a result of our conditioning is because we are forbidden, shamed, suppressed in our expression of fear and anger. Men, for example, are very much shamed for expressing fear. That's actually why men are more. That's why men are conditioned more than women and are more easily manipulated into doing stupid things like killing others or going to war or risking their bodily integrity for something as stupid as an insult. They're more proud. Women oftentimes, habitually, are very much criticized, shamed for expressing anger. So whatever we don't express accumulates in us. And as we start doing nothing in meditation, or if we go deeper into our unconscious by using psychedelics or by using inquiry or any other sort of practice, the past suppression, the past experiences rush up to the surface of consciousness. And so you are in meditation, perfectly comfortable, absolutely no threat to your body, and yet huge fear can arise, or tremendous anger and rage can arise, especially after awakening, as it all begins to open up. It's very difficult in those moments to actually remind yourself that you're absolutely safe. There is nothing that you need to do, that all of this is coming from the past, because it is the same fear and the same anger fundamentally. But it has been so delayed, you see, and there's so much of it that it can become very, very confusing. You can actually look at all of our conditioning as a delayed reaction to mistreatment. You can look at anger as a delayed reaction to mistreatment. You can look at sadness and grief as delayed reaction to mistreatment. And what you will notice is that the course of unfolding, the reaction, this delay time becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. It kind of shrinks. So first you grieve the things that happened 10 years ago, or you get angry about how you were raised. Then as you're already reasonably well established in awareness, someone mistreats you, but of course you so used to it, you kind of put a blind eye to it habitually, and then maybe 2 weeks later you finally realize that it was a mistreatment, and there's anger or tears or something like that in a less intense form than maybe when you were grieving the 10-year baggage, but it's still there. And finally, you can look at the completely enlightened state where all of your reactions are completely adequate to the situation. You don't carry any baggage. Whatever happens, expressed immediately, and no conditioning accumulates. And it just so happens that most things that happen to us, the vast majority of things that happen to us, do not involve the kind of habitual reactions that we used to in the dream state, like anger and sadness, because most things don't warrant it. The things that warrant it most are when you're actually threatened. That's why most of our conditioning is actually from a very, very early years, where we are so small and so dependent that we must obey, and every disapproval or withdrawal of love from our caregivers is quite rationally perceived to be a threat of survival. So there could be depths of anger associated with this, depths of sadness, depths of grief. And it is very important to explore it. It's tempting to say, oh, enlightenment, spirituality, equanimity, it's all about being nice and pleasant and sort of put it under the carpet, pretend to be nice all the time, say, oh, anger, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't be experiencing anger, I should be equanimous or loving or spiritual. But this darkness left unexplored invariably leads you to abusing people under the disguise of nice words and looking good, but not actually with the good intent. So you can express contempt with very nice words. You can disparage someone while looking very kind and equanimous, but inside you know that you look at this person condescendingly. You just want to send them a loving message or something like this. You see? So unless we explore the dark side of us, it will always control us in subtle ways, in unconscious ways, actually. Just like many spiritual people are condescending, many awake people are condescending towards dreaming people, for example, and very unaccepting of them. So this is driven by the remaining unexplored darkness. The good news is that this darkness is not your innate darkness. So you can say that there's innate darkness in every human being. So when you read like spiritual texts and say there's darkness in all of us and stuff, you can imagine that what it says is, oh, and under the right circumstances, everybody can like become a sadist and enjoy killing and go on a killing spree or rampage, like something like this. That's actually not what it means. There is, of course, a capacity for violence in every living being. You're a mammal. Any animal, try to kill it. It bite you back. It can kill you back. That's normal. That's our survival instincts. That's actually an expression of infinite love for yourself as a living being. The survival instinct is actually the deepest expression of it. So every one of you can kill if you need to. So if you want to call it darkness, you can, but that's probably not what most people mean, or most people interpret when they read the spiritual text. There is darkness, there is darkness. The darkness that the spiritual text refer to is the accumulated darkness, the suppressed anger, the suppressed hatred, resentment that we carry that has been unexpressed. And the good part of this darkness is because it's baggage from the past. That's why it arises in meditation. Everything that arises in meditation is from the past. Even fantasies about the future is just reimagined past. So because it's from the past, then it can be experienced, it can be accepted, and with that come deeper insight about the woundedness that it brought in you, the irrational aggression that it created in you. So it's not some sort of a innate darkness. In the natural state, the human beings are very irrational. If no one is threatening my body, there is absolutely no innate darkness in you. Why? Why? It's even stupid from the rational perspective. It takes energy and it's very risky to try to harm someone, you know. So from the rational perspective, if I don't need to do it for survival, I would just rather chill and enjoy. Every animal is like that. I'm not a predator. I'm actually prey. Human beings that don't actually have predatory instinct. They have an instinct for violence, as every animal does, but we don't have a predatory instinct. The predator instinct in human beings is conditioning coupled with deceitful stories of honor and the glorification of violence that exists in our culture. So both fear and anger has an immediacy to it. Fear calls for the immediate response to run away. That's why it's difficult to deal with fear in meditation. And anger calls for an immediate response for violence. And there's confusion in the dream state, right? We call to violence in situations where no violence is taken against us, or we call to run away in the situation where actually nothing threatens us. It is an emotional response. The threat is only to the psyche. But it's important to stay with those experiences. Anger is usually preceded by fear. I'm not talking about the immediate anger right now. I'm talking about the anger that arises as you explore your conditioning and spiritual practice. It is usually preceded by fear. Because if you have a difficulty acting on anger, if you have a lot of suppressed anger, and this is where consciousness goes in your depth of unconscious, that means that you have been told many times that it's not your place to be angry. That means that you get scared when you get angry. You get scared of punishment. You get scared of someone much bigger than you saying, you can't get angry. And even though you're not a threat to them, you're just a small little child, but they express aggression towards you for your expressing of anger. Most of the time, irrational aggression, which is much, much more threatening to you, you know. Like a irrational response to an expression of anger of someone much smaller than you who's not a threat to you is pretty much no response at all. So, in unraveling all of this, you'll be faced with fear before you get deeper exposed to your anger. That's actually quite normal. Not always, but usually. Usually behind fear, there's usually the anger is covered by a layer of fear. And then after anger, oftentimes comes grief. Because the getting closer to the anger is also uncovers the deeper understanding, the insight of what has happened to you and why you were this way. Why you were so bitter, why you were so wounded, why you were lashing out in anger yourself. And with that come tears and grief. If you have a problem with witnessing expressions of anger that are no threat to you, and that's the story of most adults, that's how we condition children. Most adults have a problem with looking, with witnessing anger, even if it's not a threat to you. That's why the response to a child's anger is irrational, to a small child's anger. So if you have a problem witnessing anger in someone else, that means you're uncomfortable with anger in you. That means you carry it. That means you have it. And you will never be able to be comfortable with someone's anger. You will never be able to be forgiving and equanimous to someone's anger unless you're comfortable with your own. So you'll never be able to forgive someone's darkness unless you have seen and forgiven your own. If you're hateful, you will not allow other people to hate you. You will want to be in conflict with them or change it in some way. You will not be at peace. And vice versa. So getting in touch with our anger is actually a very important thing to do. And getting over the fear of it is also. And you know, it's very easy to fall prey to this idea of like a perfect enlightenment or a perfect enlightened teacher who never gets angry, always so forgiving, so unconditionally loving, and you want to be like that because you all respect me and admire me in some way. And so you want to emulate that. There's also an egoic idea attached to it of like, if I'm gonna be like that, then other people will admire me similarly to how I admire Artem. And that's a deceitful way of going about it. You know, ego is a form of a substance. It wants to emulate because you don't know how to be yourself. So you're looking for a role model. You want to emulate someone else. You've been taught by your parents and everyone else how to be. So now another teacher tells you how to be, but I don't want to tell you how to be. I'm not teaching you how to be like me, and I'm trying to teach you how to be like you. So there's nothing that I'm telling you that you must take on faith. And let me put your minds at ease. Well, first of all, during my own unfolding, I have experienced tremendous amounts of anger, rage, tremendous, just like tremendous amounts of grief. For everything that's been done to me, for everything that human beings are doing to each other. A lot of anger. In meditation, sometimes it manifested as dreams of homicide. And suicide also, self-anger, self-hatred. Anger, just like love, doesn't have a direction. The mind puts an arrow to every experience. So hatred comes with, like, I'm either hate this person or I hate myself. I either want to kill them or I want to kill myself. Because anger is fundamentally, that's its function in nature. Anger is fundamentally simply a desire to do physical harm. That's what anger is. So we suppress a lot of it, and we become so wounded that someone tells us something, and we, as living beings, as animals, want to hurt this person. That makes no sense at all, but that's the dream state. Hatred is basically just intense anger. It's a very intense anger. And similarly, anger is a desire to harm, and hatred is a desire to kill. And it's going to be directed towards either others or themselves. If you carry suppressed anger, if you carry a lot of it, then if it gets exposed intensely, that would be hatred. So then you want to either harm or kill someone else, or you want to harm or kill yourself. And so I experienced tremendous amounts of it. I let myself experience all of it without doing anything about it. Sometimes I did. I mean, you will make mistakes. It's not like you can't, like, okay, I will not do anything about my conditioning ever. You can't. It's too much. Like, the journey is long. It will take a lot of time. You will make mistakes and you'll forgive yourself for them. And you also cannot change the behavior that is driven by the conditioning that you have not yet seen. So you will make mistakes even from this perspective. But even if you have seen it already, that, like, you're propelled by irrational anger from time to time, you snap to people. Sometimes you will still snap. And then you'll see it deeper, and then you'll cry. And then you'll forgive yourself. And next time, you'll be much less likely to snap. So it's important to stay with all of it, to explore it very deeply on the experiential level. So speaking about myself, continue speaking about myself, right now, I don't experience anger in my body pretty much at all. I don't remember the last time that I did it. But from time to time, I get in some sort of a irritable mood, so to say. So Osho actually described it like the last stages of unfolding. He described it like when the emotional body dissolves, then you're only left with moods, like not emotions, but the kind of moods. You know, he was actually precisely right. So, like, for example, this morning, I woke up in quite an irritable mood. So I wake up, and this dude is sleeping on the sofa. With all this hairy back. Didn't even put a sheet. What the fuck is wrong with you? And then I go to drink myself some tea. And the thing is empty. The tea, the warmer. Like, who the fuck was the last person who poured himself the last droplets of hot water and didn't fill it up? Children? So I was quite irritated about that. Then this dude wakes up. He says, good morning. I don't know, look at him. Good morning. Good morning. That's not a fucking good morning at all. Yeah, then this dude wakes up and comes and stands right in the way where I was supposed to I wasn't angry, I was irritated. Irritation is a slight form of anger. Just like hatred is a very, not whatever me. So then this dude wakes up and stands right in the way where I was about to pour my tea. I was just about to do it. Oh, and this dude, by the way, this loud dude with the guitar. I hate his guitar. What the fuck? It's like the worst instrument ever. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, he's flew from New York, so I understand that probably he couldn't put like a piano on a. But I would rather much prefer it, or a flute. Guitar is not a very So like when I woke up at like 5 or 6, and he's sleeping there, right? So what I really wanted to do is like take his guitar and go. Do you like it? Just give me some fucking silence. You'll talk too loud, and like really wanted to teach him a lesson. Didn't do it. And then once this guy is finished with his tea, because this teapot takes like 20 minutes, I decide to make some coffee, and I open up a coffee machine, and there's like old coffee there. Who the fuck does that? You need to clear this thing. And so I take it out. I mean, you will know who you are. And then I take it out and I put it in trash. And then I put the new coffee in, but I forgot to put this plastic container. So I put the filter without plastic container, without the filter container, and poured some coffee and started making coffee. And as a result of that, I spent like 20 minutes to clear the coffee maker from all the ground coffee that was all over. 20 fucking minutes. If you looked at me from the outside, you wouldn't have noticed anything at all. I just calmly looked at, and I started cleaning. I realized I made a mistake. I started. You would be, wow, this dude is so equanimous. And it's true. You would have looked like just a perfect calmness. And I didn't experience any anger on the body level, but my thoughts were not pretty. And so after that, like maybe 20 or 45 minutes after, or like an hour after that, I had an old student of mine who like insulted me before publicly and insulted my wife, just a horrible, violent insult, threats of violence, like contacted me with similar threats. I wasn't angry. We had a conversation during which he admitted that he was struggling with the anger, turned around, said that he wants to go back into the Sangha, said that he's amazed at my patience, and told me a very sincere description of what was going on with him. And that moved me to tears a little bit, because he was so sincere and so open-hearted. That's an example of how anger is followed by grief, or in my case, a slightly irritable mood that lasted maybe 40 minutes in the morning, followed by, I don't know, like 10, 20 seconds of crying. There wasn't even much tears. But it's the same process. It just gets less and less and less intense. It's usually the most intense right after awakening. And then it gets slower, less intense. So if you're going through something really intense, know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And as the emotional body dissolves, night dreams go away. And that's actually why also, if any one of you is wondering, is why you feel shitty in the morning. So you feel shitty in the morning because there is no difference between sleep and meditation. And there is no fundamental difference between psychedelic trips, meditative experiences, and night dreams. And so once you awake, the consciousness continues to explore your suppressed emotions, accompanied by stories. And if the exploration is more intense, then it's accompanied by visual stories. That's what dreams are. And so dreams become more emotional and things like that. So in the morning, you feel that. And then it may take some time to find yourself, to find consciousness again. The reality is always first acknowledged in the waking state. Then once it's firmly established in the waking state, you kind of come back to it in the mornings quicker and quicker, and there's less and less difference between how you were in the evening and how you were in the morning, until this difference completely evaporates and all dreams evaporate. Like, obviously, based on my recollection, this day I woke up, there was a slight difference. It was very slight, right? But as I've been doing all of this, my spiritual practices, that this difference between the morning and the evening becomes less and less and less. And actually, the morning grogginess is also uh, symptomatic of the same process. Dreams are groggy. I mean, dreams take energy. So now when I get up in the morning, I'm not groggy at all. So get in touch with your anger. It's okay to express anger. It's okay to feel anger. It's just as important as love and compassion. And unless you see it in your own experience, how difficult it is to be angry and how much suppressed anger you have, you will never be able to extend compassion to it for someone else. Because you cannot extend compassion to someone else for something that you would not extend compassion to yourself for. If you, whatever you forbid yourself, you will forbid others. All right, so that was my talk. If you have any questions. Shay.
You talked about anger, and for me, it's a challenge with that, but also just general assertiveness. And I wonder, are they related? Are they like on a spectrum with each other? Because you said anger is the intent to hurt. I feel like assertiveness is kind of more like a expression of wants, but also kind of oftentimes like a pushing away of something that you don't want. And I have a hard time with that as well. Um, and I don't know if maybe I just associate with them with each other because of the fact that it was hard for me to express either one growing up, or if they're really quite different.
Good question. So assertiveness in general is just very common knowledge. Like, pure assertiveness is just what you know to be true. Like, for example, would you like a cup of tea? No, thank you. It's very calm. It has no aggression in it. I know that I don't like a cup of tea. Or I would like to go this way. I know that I would like to go this way. I can express it without aggression. I can express it uh, without anger. But what happens is that conditioning is subjugation. So for as long as you conditioned, it is not possible for you to have a healthy relationship with authority, because a healthy relationship with authority is no relationship to authority. You maybe respect their knowledge, you look at what they're telling you think for yourself, you don't blindly take their knowledge, you may appreciate their experience, but there is no position of automatic deference or automatic rebellion. Because we are conditioned to live for others and reject ourselves, we only develop two kinds of relationship to authority. It's either deference, deference or deference? Deference. So it's either deference or it's rebellion, right? So if you're on the side of deference, if you kind of automatically succumb to authority, then assertive people, and by the way, both uh, aggressively assertive, which is oftentimes admired in society, and calmly assertive, like myself, uh, uh, will be viewed as authority, and you will have an automatic response to submit. If you're on the side of rebelliousness, then you mistrust authority, right? So it's either you trust authority too much, or you mistrust it. It's the opposite extreme. You mistrust too little, and kind of your first automatic response to authority is to push it away. You're rebellious, right? Then you will hate assertive people because you're also assertive yourself. Actually, such people are also usually aggressively assertive themselves. Rebellious people are usually aggressive, assertive themselves. And so, however we were in the dream state, there's another side of us that wants to get explored, and they need to be integrated together. The other side of personality. And so, if you have been on the submissive side, it will be actually very difficult for you to be assertive without anger. It's okay. Because if you've been on the submissive side, there's a lot of anger because you have been allowing, you have a tendency, you will have a tendency to allow until it kind of blow up. And first it will be huge blows up. You can actually even tell that your awakening was a huge blow up, right? And then you will notice that their waves, they kind of become shorter. The shorter you sort of wait, the less extreme the expression of anger will be, the easier it will be. The more you wait, the more anger there is, and the harder it will be for you to say something without also be aggressive. So for people who are on the submissive side, they need to practice to express their needs and desires, even if it comes up aggressive. Like you can apologize for this later, especially if you're living with a person with whom you intimacy, with whom you're living in intimacy, or they know what's going on with you, and you both are in the spiritual path. But you cannot. It's unreasonable to demand for you to never be aggressive when you're assertive. And for people who are assertive and aggressive themselves, they need to learn to stay with their anger and actually do not automatically reject their some suggestion, but to consider it, right? So people who are on the submissive side tend to automatically take a suggestion, and then you'll take suggestions, even bad suggestions. And then people who are on the rebellious side tend to automatically dismiss suggestions, even good suggestions. And that's exactly what they need to reverse. So people on the assertive side need to learn to be more understanding, whereas people on the submissive side need to learn to be more assertive. So there will be anger for you involved in that. Let it, because like, remember how we talked about anger being preceded by fear? The reason also, like, it's the same dynamic here. You are, that like once you start being assertive, there will be anger, and you're afraid. You're afraid to show your anger because you think there's something, the world's going to end when you show your anger. You're going to be punished when you show your anger. So then the first fear, step over this fear, make your assertions. Yes, there will be anger. Look at this anger. So it's kind of the same dynamic. And then sometimes you do that, and the person just says yes, of course, and then you're so touched and you move to tears. It's sort of it's very much the same dynamic all over the spiritual path, in just different intensity and length of waves, and it come in different forms, but there's a pattern. Any other
Thank
questions?
you.
You talked about fear standing in the way of anger. I experience this too, but it's like it seems to me, just based upon my experiences, that anger experienced without being like very rooted in awareness can be like a dangerous emotion, because I've seen it drive people close to me, and I've also had it drive me to do things that are like directly harmful to like my physical body or the bodies of others. Like it seems to like compel a violent impulsivity or destructive impulsivity, and that's what kind of scares me about it. And it scares me to allow it sometimes too, because I can get lost in it, and then I just want to inflict harm, um upon, like, usually it's upon myself, and like sometimes I do. um I, is is there just like a certain intentionality with which it needs to be like, do I need to just meditate before allowing? It scares me when it comes up. I don't like it when it comes up, and I'm not I don't always feel like I'm in a place where I can handle it responsibly.
Yeah, that's why the key is not to do anything about it. And it's a very common challenge in the spiritual way, on the spiritual path. For example, suicidal ideation. Almost anyone goes through it. Almost anyone, because every ego carries a lot of self-hatred and self-loathing, and so you kind of have to remind yourself to not do anything. Like, none of these emotions, none of these thoughts have any power over you. Actually, you don't have to do what the mind suggests. It's just the voice in your head. Even if you have a huge desire to do some harm and you're hearing thoughts about it, this voice does not command you. So you can remind yourself of it. You can uh, kind of doze easy into it in meditation. You can make yourself the moments of getting lost in, let's say, fear, paranoia. That would be, if it's fear, suicidal ideation, self-hatred, or anger. Most people don't get very much lost in homicidal ideation because there's a punishment for that. But suicidal ideation is very, very common. Uh, so there will be moments when you get lost in it, right? Usually people don't do anything stupid. Uh, or the expressions of anger, especially after you awakened, uh, are verbal and emotional. If you tend to do something physical, right, then I might suggest you may put reminders, for example, around the house as little notes. It will pass. Don't do anything. Don't listen to this voice. Don't harm yourself. You will thank me later. Like, whatever sort of ways you can do. And then also, that's the value of the spiritual communities for two reasons. Well, first of all, as you go through this difficulty, you can go to Discord and say, hey, help. I'm feeling like I want to do something bad. And then someone can talk through the feeling and sit with you and help you uh, to sit with this feeling, accept it without acting. And also, as we practice it in a consensual setting, right, in the non-judgmental setting, as you practice being angry around all of these people that accept you and love you and hug you, you won't want to do something to yourself. And even if you want to, you will not dare, and we won't let you. That you sort of begin to see. You see, the more you go and the more frequently you get lost in these things, and it happens. However you develop awareness, there's no like a trick to develop awareness to such an extent that you never get lost in ego. That's like equivalent to instant enlightenment. You do get lost, from time to time. And the more experience you have of getting lost, going through it, and finding it, and realizing that it has passed, the easier it is for you to remind yourself next time that it will also pass, and you don't need to do anything next time you're lost. So this kind of exposure helps with time. And then maybe someone else from the Sangha can also give you some like practical tips if they have struggled similarly after this talk. Does it answer your question? Does it address it in some way?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Had a question about the dreams.
Yeah.
I used to dream constantly, sleep talk, wake up groggy. It was just like a full-time job at night and then get up in the day and it felt the same. That does not happen anymore.
Good.
I think I dream once every 2 months, maybe. I had a dream about you last night and it was like a 2-second dream. I don't wake up groggy unless my cats wake me up, so it's pretty restful. Why? What changed?
Because you have much less. You are. Your psyche is much healthier than before. Basically, let's put it this way. So the more. The more paranoid, unhealthy the psyche is. So basically, the bigger the ego is, the more suffering exists in the psyche, in the unconscious. The more restless one is. That's why enlightenment is restfulness, right? So meditation in the complete light state is just rest, just absolutely nothing else. Restlessness manifests not only during the waking time, but during the nighttime also. So extreme restlessness is teeth grinding during night, talking, sleepwalking, restless leg syndrome, and other things. So as you become healthier and healthier and you process more of the suppression, your nights will become calmer and calmer. So do you not dream at all? You probably don't remember dreams. Like I would be surprised if you didn't dream at all, because there is still suffering in you and still unraveling of the conditioning. But it's also quite possible. I mean, the mind is a very mysterious thing. It's also quite possible that you need rest right now, so the mind sort of rests during the night. Like if your days especially are very emotional, you see. But don't be surprised if like later in the journey you begin dreaming again, and dreams are emotional. You will also start being aware during dreams, that you will realize that you're dreaming and processing some. So just like in meditation, some narrative around the unprocessed wounds or fear of the future, or revisiting some of us from the past. So it's good. I mean, what you described is good.
Cool. Thanks.
So you were saying some stuff about how people people tend to have like perceptions of what enlightenment is, and I think I have one, so I kind of wanted clarity. And I think there's this tendency for my mind to think that enlightenment would be that you just enjoy everything that you're doing, but someone earlier told me that it's not that, it's that you just don't do what you don't want to do, or like you don't do the things
Both
you
are
don't
true.
enjoy.
Both are true, because it's the same. Like if I only do what I want to do, then I only do what I enjoy,
But are there things that you don't enjoy that you don't
and
want?
still do.
No, that you just wouldn't do because you don't enjoy them.
So it's oh wait, what?
Like in my mind, there's this like, it almost seems like it's like this state where you enjoy everything you're doing. Like you would enjoy every aspect of everything that, you know, someone suggests something and you would go do it and you enjoy it. But that's not true, right? You
No,
just,
that's not true. If
okay.
well, first of all, if I don't want to do it, I will not do it. So from that perspective, I can say that I only do what I enjoy. But then it's not true from the perspective of like there could be some things that I would rather not do, but no one will do it for me, and I do it because they need to be done. uh, you can hardly say that there is enjoyment in it, but there's also no misery in it. So there is no resistance to it. You see, it's like the difference between a child who hates all the chores and an adult who cleans the house, even though sometimes it's not enjoyable, but without fuss, without like a tantrum, just as something that needs to be done. And yes, of course, there's some amount of enjoyment that can found in it, right? But like if we approach this person and say, if I do it for you, would you agree? And they say, yeah, I would love you to do it for me. Then it means that, that's strictly theoretically she would also do something else, right? So joy can be found in every present moment. The joy is always there. But when we're talking about behavior, if your question is about behavior, then the difference between I want to do it and I need to do it kind of dissipates and disappears, because if I need to do it, then I also want to do it for myself. So the problem with the separatist state is that there's also a very big difference between want and need, because we don't know what we want. Like we oftentimes think that our needs are wants and our wants are needs. We're like completely confused, you see. But there's also another important aspect of your question about enjoyment. Uh, on the path to enjoying everything, the most important aspect of it is to learn to enjoy all of your inner experience, learn to enjoy all of your emotions. So the path of loosening resistance of every emotional experience, like anger, humiliation, condescension, feeling above or below, like all of those things, you first hate it, then you realize it's not as bad. Then you realize that kind of the mind makes it bad. Then you actually start enjoying it in a kind of a masochistic way. And then when you have enjoyed everything, you like really relish anger. Believe it or not, there's a point of the spiritual journey when you when you begin enjoying fear. You're like, oh, nice, oh, fear, yes, yes. I want to be afraid now a little bit. I want more of it. Give me more. Because it's fun. It's all experiences in your consciousness. It's all you, just exploring your psyche, nothing else. Right? I'm not talking about enjoying fear as like I want to seek out a grizzly bear. You just in meditation or in a psychedelic trip, nothing that is happening anywhere outside. Like it's only in your mind. You're exploring yourself, and so you enjoy all of it. So that's why you cannot reach enlightenment by force. You have to enjoy all the levels of dreaming, like really enjoy it. And then when you have satisfied yourself with all of it, the last enjoyment is peace. Not even love, it's peace. You want nothing else. Everything else has been experienced, enjoyed, with lots of gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for the anger. Thank you for the hatred. Thank you for embodying unconditional love and all the smiles. And all I want is peace now. So the mind settles into peace because you have enjoyed all of it. It's been exhausted. So from that perspective, it's actually important to learn to that's the practice. You're practicing enjoying all parts of you as an inner experience. And your outer life begins to reflect that. And yes, there could be hardship, difficult circumstances in the outer life, but if there's no inner part of you which you reject, then you just do what needs to be done in the best interest of you and the best interest of someone else. Could you still end up dead or ill? Sure, I mean that's life, but you'll get your best shot at it.
Thanks.
So I could tell maybe you were irritated earlier when I looked down at my phone. I was
I wasn't actually irritated. I was just showing you with my eyes that you don't send text messages during satsang.
Yes, I completely understand. I didn't send a text message.
What
I
are you
was
doing?
writing down a question to ask you later.
Okay, I'm sorry then.
Yes. Thank you.
how insensitive of me. I never thought people did that. That's actually very thoughtful of you. That's the first time I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I was afraid to do it too. I actually thought that was gonna happen.
Yeah,
but
I thought you were
but
just texting
but I knew I was
someone.
gonna forget the
I was like,
question.
what the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
But I wasn't. But I wasn't really irritated.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like the coffee grounds, right?
No,
No.
with the coffee ground, there was an actual experience,
No, I know.
right? So
Okay.
there was like, well, it was very very slight experience. So okay, I didn't experience anything in the body, but there was a stream of thought,
Yeah.
right? And a consequence of that also, so that it's ended, and then I cried a little, right? So here I didn't think about it at all, and I don't think I'll cry after this.
Okay. Tell me if you do.
I just made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, you like
Yeah.
even in the complete enlightened state, you will make mistakes. You cannot know everything. The difference is that an open mind, a free, peaceful, equanimous mind, corrects a mistake instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can make and you can make mistakes. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So my question was, it's like, what does it mean about your past if you feel like you'll lose control when you're angry? Because what I've noticed is that when I get angry now and I really allow it, there is that point where it gets to fear, because there's this fear of like what I'll do, but like there's nothing to do. I'm just there with myself. And usually like I will smack my mattress very hard, like repeatedly many times. One time I did that and I actually just passed out. Uh, I don't know. My dad was very angry with us when growing up, and we tried to be angry back, but I think I learned over time to despise him for his anger because of how it made him and how it made me feel. And so I think I forbid this anger in myself. But yeah,
Yes,
that's my
probably.
question. What does it mean when you feel like
So
you'll lose control?
so it kind of answered your own question,
Yeah,
interestingly, because you said you admitted that I don't actually lose control.
right.
So what you're afraid of, that's what we're afraid of. Actually, we're not afraid of losing control of ourselves. We kind of in the dream state, we're already not in control of ourselves. We don't have ourselves at all.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
that's like one of the insights I had actually. I smoked a lot of DMT, and I realized that I don't have to close my eyes. I don't have to do anything. I can stand up. I can walk. And the insight was I am in complete self-possession.
Mm,
Like even a psychedelic drug cannot change that. I'm in complete self-possession. In the dream states, that's actually not true. You're not in self-possession at all. So what you're actually afraid of is not losing control. You're only gaining control by going deeper into this journey. You're afraid of losing control over your inner experience. You're afraid of losing, like what the ego does is tries to tightly control what you want to feel
right.
and what you don't want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether you want to feel anger or you don't, like, because anger is unpleasant, fear is unpleasant and stuff like that. Control
Mm-hmm.
is very scary to lose.
Yeah.
And from the ego's perspective, it feels like death. It feels like jumping into the unknown. It feels like,
Yeah.
because the ego is the orchestrator.
Mm-hmm.
The ego wants to kind of plan your life
Yeah.
so that you never feel this, or that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so from its perspective, its complete loss of control is also its death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people confuse enlightenment with suicide. You know, that's why people commit suicide. So basically, the ego wants to let go of control and die because the ego is always in misery. But it doesn't know any other way of letting go of control than killing the body. And it doesn't appreciate that it will still be seen, like whatever belief system you subscribe to, like whether it's reincarnation or that you will all go through the purgatory when you're dying, that it will still all be seen, all this misery will still be experienced, and it cannot escape itself this way. And so kind of the right way for the ego to die is in meditation. And the right way to let go of control is in meditation. And then what you will discover in meditation when you go deep enough is that, like a saying that I love very much about free will, which is the same as saying is about control, of some master, I don't remember who he was, but that was my experience exactly. He was asked about free will, and he said human beings have infinite free will with regard to what they do, and zero free will with regard to what they experience. So that's my experience exactly. That's the self-possession part that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I have absolute control over what I do all the time, but I have zero control about what I will experience. That's the kind of natural, normal state. So the ego wants the opposite, right? The ego wants to control what it will experience, and as a result, the human being deceived by the ego has very little control of what they do. You know, and you don't want to experience anger, but then, woof, you can't take it anymore. There's like an outburst, and you say what? You say, "Oh, something came. I'm sorry. Something came over me. I wasn't myself." That's loss of control.
Yeah. So as I allowed myself to go deeper into this anger, eventually what happens is I lose the sense of there being a dial on the experience, and
Yes.
it goes further into the unknown, and it's like
Yes.
You
Yes.
have no control over how the
Yes,
experience
but paradoxically,
goes.
you will get greater control over your behavior
Right,
and your
yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
So you kind of touched upon confusion,
Mhm.
and for me, like the last like 6-7 months, I feel like I've been like constantly confused, and it's like accompanied with fear, like a lot of fear and anger, because like I'm like firstly really angry that people confused me, like, you know, and I believed it too, that
Yeah.
I know what to do, and like also there's fear like of like, I don't know, like judgment or like what's gonna happen. But I guess, yeah, my question is like how did I get so confused, and like what do I do?
Okay, so so I actually wrote an article about confusion. I think I don't remember what it's
Yeah.
called, but if you search Discord on new content about confusion, I think it's actually on the website now. It's a good one. So confusion is inevitable. I mean, if you are suffering, it means you are confused, because all suffering is from self-deceit. If there is self-deceit, you see, not just deceit, self-deceit. It's synonymous to confusion. You cannot not be confused if you're lying to yourself and not know about it. So that's why, you know, in a very honest kind of explorative conversation with an enlightened being, I can ask a question and there's just confusion. What does it mean? It just means that the question was designed to penetrate through the veil of self-deceit, and that's confusing. You see,
Yeah.
and that's confusing and fearful, because you can only see what this question alludes to, greater clarity, if you allow the emotion that this particular part of self-deceit is dependent on. Because we only lie to ourselves because that's how we protect ourselves. We protect ourselves emotionally. So the confusion is an invariable and a very large component on the spiritual path, just like fear is. It oftentimes comes with fear. Like the fear is on the level of the body, the confusion on the level of the mind. So even if you feel like on the level of the mind that you're going completely crazy, that there is just madness and complete confusion, you can remind yourself, who knows that there is confusion? At least you know that there's confusion. You know, at least that much you know. Okay, I am confused. And say, okay, I'm confused now. I know this. I may not know anything else at all, but I know this. I'm okay. It's okay to be confused. and just keep staying with it. It's a just like, I say that fear is a predecessor of an emotional experience, a suppressed emotional experience, on the level of the heart or the body. Confusion is a predecessor of insight on the level of intellect. How else could it be, right? So if an insight coming, and every authentic insight is, I have always known this, I was just in denial. So if an insight is coming, right, then it means the confusion that was covering this insight is being uncovered right now, right? So remind yourself that it's okay to be confused, just as it's okay to be. Just actually say to yourself, "Good. Oh, nice. Fear. Oh, I'm about to experience something that I have forgotten I had." Or like confusion. Oh, I will soon see something. There is still the insight, and just allow yourself. I know it's difficult.
Even if it's like
No, it's pretty much
6, 7
impossible, right?
months.
Yeah. In uh, the midst of it. So just keep practicing. Let yourself be confused. Let yourself be scared. Continue experiencing, and some clarity will come in small pieces. You know, it could be very difficult. Like, for example, my wife Katya, she was very scared, like in the midst of, like, very paranoid for a couple of years, right? Yeah, was afraid to leave her house for a couple of years. Our house. See, I told this is your house. So, because one time I said this is my house, and she was like, yeah. So now I said this is your house. So, so, so persevere, trust in the process. Now to your question, how do we get so confused? That's the same question of how we get conditioned, and the answer is actually, you can condition an animal with violence. Like you can get a puppy and hit it every time it does something bad, something you don't want it to do, and reward it every time it wants to. And you kind of get a trained puppy, or like a circus horse. You can train any animal to like become a circus animal this way. I mean, it's a sad sight and a huge abuse. So we do kind of the same thing with children. The difference with people, though, is that our minds are so potent compared to animals, and we are very, very capable of conceptual thought. So what is happening in our case, like at least the animal doesn't know, like why it's happening, what's happening, and yes, it's still conditioned on the level of expecting punishment for natural behavior it wants. It's still restricting itself because it expects punishment. So it can, like when the animal is conditioned, you might not even provide any punishment, it will still do what you want. Conditioned, that's conditioning, just like we are conditioned. But with humans, we're also told lies about why. We said, that's for your benefit. We said, that's love. We're hated, and then say, don't you, and then we're being said, don't you love me? I'm your father. How can you not love me? You must. Shame on you for not loving me. Or I'm God, Do you love me? If not, I'll send you to hell. And I love you, by the way. That's love. Yes. And then we're being forced to do something and say, you want it, you just don't know it. You'll thank me later.
Yeah.
And then we are abused, and we said, oh, you deserved it. That's just because you're a bad person. Because no abuser that is abusing you is shouting, I'm just a sadistic motherfucker. No. They're shouting how filthy and deserving of this you are. And so we're being done all of this when we're still not adults. We can't even stand up for ourselves. And even when we are adults, just look at this society, prison, violence, and stuff like that, because the society abuses us, right? And so, but as children, we are much more prone to believe it, because actually by nature, in the natural state, there is no being that is more on the child's side than the mother or the father. So if you look at the animal world, they don't punish children, ever. They prevent the child. Like for example, a small child monkey might venture too far, and their mother will like, wait, you're too young for this. But there's not going to be a slap on the butt, right? So they inform the child. They have the best interest of the child at heart. So they inform the child, that's too dangerous yet, but then when it's time, they will actually even push it, just like the birds will push their chicks out of the nest, and then show them how to feed. Like, here's where the food is. Like, first I put it in your mouth. So the best joke, I need to tell it. Like, I just love this. I saw like a meme, like a bird sitting at the psychoanalyst chair and say, my mother barfed in my mouth. So first I like childhood trauma, just imagine that. Wow. So first they would barf in their mouth, and then they would then when the chicks is big enough, they would stop doing this. They would just bring some food, give it some food, and then they would push the chicks outside of the nest and say, hey, fly with me, I'll show you. Here's food, do it yourself. I'm not going to do it for you. And they do it, of course, in the interest of the child, right? So in the animal world, when there's a bringing, there is a transmission of good, valuable information for you. So the child's brain is by nature designed to take all the information from the parent as true. So then when the parent abuses you and then says this is love,
It's no wonder.
you kind of it's not even like Gabriel Mate described it this way, that the child needs to choose between the authenticity and attachment to the parent, because the losing of the attachment to the parent is akin to death for the child, and it's true, right? So he chooses the attachment to the parent every time, right? So suppresses, and yes, this is true. And then the level of emotions, that's exactly what happens, right? If the parent, even if the parent just withdraws unconditional love, doesn't even like angers back, but just withdraws unconditional love, the child is very sensitive to that. So if the child is angry and the parent like stops being as attentive, the child will learn the lesson, like, okay, I better not show the anger because I don't want to risk that. My life depends on this person. But on the level of the mind, you can even say it's not even a choice, because even as we start to speak, the child's brain is by nature designed to get the information from the child as true. It's like if the bird in my example would lead the chick to a place where there are where there are poisonous berries and say eat that, the chick would eat it. Right? And so when that's the exchange of information. It's not language, but it's exchange of information. We think the information is exchanged only in language. That's absolute nonsense. Animals communicate all the time in a huge variety of ways. But language is a very strong, potent way. And so when the parent uses language and say that's love, that's for you, your brain as a child doesn't have a choice. So you suppress emotion as a result of being fearful for your attachment, and then on the level of the mind, you're also becoming very confused because you're told that things are not what they are, and aggression is love, for example. you see, and other things. And so this confusion is what, so there's nothing spiritual actually about spiritual enlightenment. It's just a healthy brain. So this confusion is just like, it's very spiritual because it's described in spiritual words historically, because the phenomenology of the things that you're going through and the experiences that you're going through are so bizarre. And of course, yes, consciousness is infinite, blah blah blah. But the experiences are so bizarre, like all of the past lives, dreams, like strange energetic experiences, hallucinations, stuff like that. But just like it was accumulated, the conditioning and the suppression, just like it was accumulated since birth on an extreme level, it sort of gets unraveled through a lot of experience too. So I don't think that a healthy adult human being dreams, and I don't think wild animals dream. To the extent that I'm aware of, there is no evidence that wild animals dreams. Pets dream, but pets are conditioned. Pets are very strange things. Pets are predators. Cats and dogs, they're both predators, which never hunt.
Yeah.
So if you look at what they dream about, it's kind of obvious. They run and they hunt or fight. So exactly what they are deprived us of by us being, by forming an attachment to us and depending on us for the food. By nature, they're not supposed to live like this. So they dream of what they never experienced, and but should have. And that's exactly why, like, cats and dogs are psychologically basically puppies and kittens. Like adult feral cats, they don't meow, they don't purr. Well, unless like, a mother and a kitten would purr, right? But generally speaking, adult feral cats don't lick each other and don't purr, and they don't need.
Oh yeah.
When your cat does this, it's pushing the milk outside of the mother's tit. So they're psychologically kittens. Just like, so because when you deprive someone of life as it's supposed to be by nature, you make a child. It's not growing up. So that's what adults are. Like the whole over the world, 8 billion adults, children in adults' bodies. That's why they're cruel, very wounded, take offense easily, irrational behaviors, tantrums, all sorts of mental hardships. Enlightenment is simply adulthood. So kind of we made a society where people don't grow up and then uh, kind of give birth to children and stunt their development with their own childish view of the world. So when you unravel all that in your own experience, it can get pretty crazy and pretty scary and stuff like that. But ultimately, there's nothing supernatural or spiritual about it. Well, of course, other than the fact that life is the absolute miracle, which no one can explain. This is also true, right? So this is also true. Life is the absolute miracle. But if we're talking about the psyche, then it's just a difference between a healthy psyche and a psyche of an abused child. If you're comparing enlightened person and dreaming person. Any other question?
I wanted to ask about lying. Like, I'm wondering kind of like if it's ever okay to lie, but what I'm really asking is, am I always lying to protect myself from people leaving me and people being mad at me? Or does it ever make sense to lie to protect other people from like...
You tell me, is that true in your experience? Do you often lie to when you try to manipulate other people into behaving a certain way? Or not leaving you or give you something you want? Do you lie a lot?
Like I hide things a lot, right? Like I hide a lot of truths from my parents, for example, over fear, like about my life and what I'm doing, about my relationship with my job, everything basically, because I feel like it'll become a thing and they'll get stressed out and they won't sleep.
Okay, so about lying. Uh, it's actually not a super easy question. So the fact that it is an unworkable philosophy to never lie to anybody at all, and it's nonsense. It's very easily demonstrated. Like somebody comes to you and say, "Hey, I want to kill your children. Where are they?" And you'd be like, "In the kitchen," because I'm always tell the truth. I'm such a good person. Children, run away! He's coming. Oh, they're running. They're going out the window. You see? So that's easy.
Yeah.
Now, whether you lie, to your parents, like to save the drama or something like this, is your choice. Uh, the most important thing to focus is self-deceit. The most important is not to lie to yourself. When you stop lying to yourself at all, then whether it's a good idea to lie or withhold certain information from somebody becomes kind of quite obvious, because you understand your relationship to them, you understand their relationship to you, because you stop lying to yourself about these things. You understand how suffering they are and whether it's worth telling them something or not. But for as long as we don't do that, there is a certain amount of lying that we do that is actually counterproductive. It's like, in a lot of situations, if you were just sincere, if you just told it how it is for you, with all the like struggle, what you really want, another person would relate, because we're all like fundamentally very similar people, and would cooperate with you. But because you're afraid, like if you had, let's say, if your family, you used to be punished for lying or something like that, so you're afraid, and you try to get it from the other person by trying to manipulate them somehow. They can sense it, and it's like, ugh, I'm not gonna cooperate with you. I sense something off here, or like you're pushing me, and like I'm not gonna give you, even if they would, if you were just sincere and open. So sincerity and openness is actually a great weapon, uh, when it's also coupled with lack of judgment from your side, and being open to any response and not trying to force a response. So I cannot go as far as to say that all the time it works with the parents. Like for example, like because if I just well, I don't live with my parents, but and they're far away. But if I live with my parents and don't withhold absolutely anything and say absolutely nothing but truth, that is basically the same as teaching them. It's the same as kind of forcing them to enlighten. There would be a lot of drama, there would be lots of conflict, and then they would probably stop wanting to live with me, and then they too old for that anyway. But there's like, it's like no choice basically. So of course, anything taken to the extreme, anything is like this is an absolute rule for life, is stupid. That's why all moral philosophies break down at some point. That there is a point where all moral philosophy fails spectacularly, and it's like don't lie would be one of them. Even like don't lie to protect someone's feelings would be one of them. Uh, so so the best advice that I can give is try to be sincere, try to talk about yourself instead of demanding things for others, try to ask for things instead of demanding them, but most importantly, be honest with yourself. And this will be easier and easier to do, and it will be easier and easier for you to see if you should tell the truth, or you should not intervene, and and live, and not like, because a lot of intervening actually comes from wanting to change another person. You know, a lot of truth telling is actually very cruel, because honesty without compassion is cruelty. And once you have compassion, and it starts with compassion for yourself, but once you have compassion for the other, the amount of compassion will help you to determine, it becomes kind of effortless, to see how much honesty is really appropriate. You know, the more compassion you have, the easier it is for you to communicate. So self-honesty is most important, but for many people, yes, judgments are best withheld or communicated in the NVC unless we're like hardcore spiritual practitioners. But but for most people, just being honest and sincere about your experience can make a huge difference in the relationship. And that's actually part of what NVC teaches, because most of all, nonviolent communication teaches sincerity, because it teaches you to look at what you feel, look at what you want, and then make a request, instead of like playing this manipulative game of, you owe me that, you're a bad person if you don't do that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So yeah, do we still have time, Katya? Okay, last one.
So something that you said a little earlier in the conversation was that the way to come to manage other people's anger better is to explore your own and come to terms with your
Yes.
own. Something that I find happens when people get angry at me is that I sort of lose my sense of object permanence, and I feel that whatever this is that's happening right now is just like all there is, and I have to find a way to resolve this right now. Like, I need to placate them, I need to get myself out of the situation, I need to do something to change the fact that they're angry right now, because I don't know what's going to happen.
That's a few response.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, how does exploring my own anger help navigate that? And in asking this question, I'm recognizing that anger is a departure from a baseline, and it has its own arc. And in not having explored my own anger, I haven't watched myself take off and then land enough times to know that people come back to normal after they get angry. So I could see how they would actually help understand that. But yeah, do you have any more thoughts about how exploring my own anger would help deal with that kind of a situation?
Uh, so if you freeze when someone is angry, right? Then you are suppressing one of two reactions. One is run away. That's like healthy fear.
Yeah.
But if you freeze, it's not healthy fear. It's egoic fear. If it was like healthy fear, you would just run away, right? Or aggression back, your anger. So there is anger behind that fear. So that's why there will be, in the spiritual practice, there would be fear before experiencing anger. You are not accustomed to experiencing your own anger. You have suppressed a lot of your own anger. You think it's bad on some level. You think it's wrong to be angry. You want to play nice. You want to placate. You think that if you will get angry, something bad will happen to you. And so in the spiritual practice, you in meditations, you get to the depth where you go through the fear and then you start seeing anger and rage. And as you do that, you will be more comfortable with other people's anger because there will be less fear, and maybe actually quite likely at some point of the state of the path, you will start experiencing your own anger as someone gets angry with you. In life, I understand that it's difficult in the midst of it. Like when you're lost in the midst of it, it's very difficult. It's like automatic response. It's very hard to break the cycle. That's why we practice. But if you can remain conscious, allow yourself to feel that fear, right? It's a little easier. Let's like maybe in person it's too overwhelming, but like maybe over text someone gets angry with you, or like you just watch something or speak to someone, right? So that there's a fear coming, but not so much that you're completely overwhelmed and you still remain conscious. That's actually, by the way, the sweet spot of the spiritual practice. And it's not always possible to be there. You will get lost many times. But the sweet spot, like for example, when it takes to dosage of psychedelics, is when the experience is intense enough that you can hold it, that you can take it, but you're not completely lose awareness. You're not completely immersed and lost in the experience. So that comes up to other forms of practice as well. It's like if we practice and I get angry at you to the extent that you completely freeze, it may still have some effect down the road. It will still loosen your resistance, but not as efficiently as if there's just the right amount of anger that you get the experience this wave of fear, but you're conscious of it. You still maintain awareness. And so when that happens, allow this fear, explore this fear, let this fear in. There's something hiding behind the fear. There might be first tears and then anger. There might be first anger and then tears. It doesn't really matter. But there is something hiding behind the fear. Because when we're talking about egoic fear, it's always the fear of experience. It's of emotional experience.
Yeah, it's usually helplessness. Is that the feeling?
Helplessness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like sadness.
Yeah.
More yeah. So then you cry the tears associated with that, and then maybe on the deeper level there will be anger.
Cool.
So it can come in like this or that.
Cool. Thank you.